Everybody loves President Donald Trump, especially First Lady Jill Biden. A photo was circulating about their time together at the reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, France, and everyone was commenting about how smitten the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, looked sitting next to President Donald Trump, especially since her husband, President Joe Biden, was not at the ceremony across the pond. President Trump even used the photo in a funny meme later on that day to pimp his new cologne, Fight, 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 which is available now, a fragrance even your enemies can't resist, is how he labeled it on his Truth Social account. He had a very busy weekend. Not only was he back on the world stage meeting with President Macron from France and other world leaders, but he was the talk of the town, the toast of the town, if you will. And President Trump, not even sworn back into office, still not the president of the United States, but really greeted like a president of the United States by all of the world leaders who were at the ceremony for the iconic reopening of Notre Dame 5 years after it had been destroyed by fire. In fact, as he arrived, there was pomp and circumstance. There was a ceremony. There was a band, soldiers, everyone standing at attention as President Trump got out of the vehicle that he arrived in. You can see there was a greeting by President Macron. The two shook hands, a very long handshake. It seemed to be one of those I'm not going to let go first type handshakes because I'm the alpha male. And then the two gentlemen walked into the palace to begin their discussions and begin the celebration. But it wasn't just President Macron. We also had William, who was in attendance, and all kinds of other various dignitaries and leaders from around the globe who were there to not only be present for the reopening of Notre Dame, but I'm sure to get their first look at the 47th president of the United States, President Donald Trump. And there were so many people who were thrilled to see him. The president of Italy, or Prime Minister of Italy, Meloni, who famously led Joe Biden back to the fold when he wandered off into the wilderness, was happy to see a man who doesn't need any kind of direction and knows exactly where he's going at all times. And again, there were backstage scenes of President Donald Trump and Prince William getting together, palling around, seemingly thrilled to see each other, which is interesting because Prince William has had some not so fond words about President Trump that he shared over the past few years. So it's interesting to see how the relationships will be mended. It's interesting to see how the world is already reacting to President Donald Trump. And again, not even sworn in. He's still just President-elect Donald Trump. We sometimes forget that. We sometimes forget that when we see how he's been handling different various events, like, for example, what's going on in Syria, which he wrote about on his Truth Social, and we'll cover here in just a minute. President Trump also sat down for an in-depth interview with Kristen Welker from Meet the Press, who seemed wholly out of her league. And no matter what question she had, she didn't seem to be prepared for the answer. And President Trump seemed to be aptly prepared for pretty much everything she tried to hit him with. One of the early questions was about deporting families, as Trump's new border czar, Tom Homan, had suggested on 60 Minutes. We don't have to break up the families. We can deport the families together. She asked him about that, and he reiterated Homan's remarks.
Let me ask you about another group of people, the estimated 4 million families in America who have mixed immigration status. So I'm talking about parents who might be here illegally, but the kids are here legally. Your border czar,
You're talking
Tom
about
Homan,
separation?
Yeah, well, there are two aspects to this. Your border czar, Tom Homan, said they can be deported together. Correct. Is that the plan?
Well, that way you keep I don't want to be breaking up families, so the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together, and you have to send them all back.
That is a very humane answer, but not the kind of answer that Kristen Welker wanted to hear. She wanted President Trump to say, well, we'll just keep them all here so that we don't break them up. He's like, no, I don't want to break up families. We'll definitely keep the families together as we send them back from whence they came. She also asked him a couple of other questions. One of them was about the FBI director, Christopher Wray, and his plans for the department.
Are you going to fire the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, who you appointed?
Well, I can't say I'm thrilled with him. He invaded my home. I'm suing the country over it. He invaded Mar-a-Lago. I'm very unhappy with the things he's done, and crime is at an all-time high. Migrants are pouring into the country that are from prisons and from mental institutions, as we've discussed. I can't say I'm thrilled. I don't want to be Joe Biden and give you an answer and then do the exact opposite.
We're going to talk about
So
that,
I'm not going to do that.
I don't want to be Joe Biden. Not many people do. Yeah, I think including at this point in time, Joe Biden, we can number him among those people. But he said, look, I'm not going to tell you one thing and then do something totally opposite, but I'm not very happy with him. He raided my home at Mar-a-Lago. He said some not so nice things about me when he was shot in the ear. This was one of the other things President Trump mentioned in the interview. When he was shot in the ear, Christopher Wray said maybe it was shrapnel. So it was again, not the kind of interview that Kristen Welker thought she was going to get from President Donald Trump. She should have thought that if she'd been paying attention. She asked him one of the most ridiculous questions, which I thought for sure we'd be done with. But apparently the media is still hung up on the idea of President Donald Trump conceding the 2020 election. They're still hung up. We've had a whole other campaign, a whole other election. It went the other way. And they're still hell-bent on trying to get Donald Trump to concede the 2020 election to Biden.
Sir, I don't have to tell you this because you've talked about it. It comes at a time when the country is deeply divided. And now you're going to be leading this country for the next 4 years. For the sake of unifying this country, will you concede the 2020 election and turn the page on that chapter?
No. No, why would I do that? But let me just tell you, when you say the country is deeply divided, I'm not the president. Joe Biden's the president.
But you're going to be the president.
No. I'm not the president. So when you say it's deeply divided, I agree. But Biden's the president. I'm not. And he has been a divider. And you know where he divided it more than anything else, and it probably backfired on him, I think definitely, is weaponization. When he weaponized the Justice Department and he went after his political opponent, me. He went after his political opponent violently because he knew he couldn't beat him. And I think it really was a bad thing. And it really divided our country.
Which is fairly true. When you use the government agencies like the FBI, like the CIA, like the IRA, whatever it happens to be, the Department of Justice, when you use government agencies to go after your main political rival, who also happens to be very popular. I mean, we look at the popular vote now and we see that President Trump won. Not just the electoral vote, but the popular vote. You've got a very popular president, and he was attacked by the current sitting president. And that seems to be a great indication as to why this country is so divided, why this country has this great division down the middle. It's something President Joe Biden and the Democrats all use to try to, I guess, garner more power. But in the end, it did was, lose their power as the people turned the country, all branches of the government, over to the Republicans. She asked him, speaking of which, about Pete Hegseth, one of the quote unquote controversial cabinet nominees, and what she thinks about him. And he said,
it looks like Pete is doing well now. I mean, people were a little bit concerned. He's a young guy with a tremendous track record, actually. He went to Princeton and went to Harvard. He was a good student at both, but he loves the military, and I think people are starting to see it. So we'll be working on his nomination along with a lot of others.
Since you bring him up, do you still have confidence in Pete Hegseth?
Yes, I do. I really do. He's a very smart guy. I've known him through Fox, but I've known him for a long time. And he's basically a military guy. I mean, every time I talk to him, all he wants to talk about is the military. He's a military guy.
So Donald Trump reaffirming on national television his support for his pick, Pete Hegseth, to lead the Pentagon, to lead the military, to be the Secretary of Defense. And, an open claim that, he has my support, and I believe he should have the support of the full Senate because he's the right guy. He's the right guy for the job. Speaking of guys for the job or girls for the job, President Trump didn't mince words with Kristen Welker when he thought that she was being unfair, which was most of the time. And this is a reiteration of, this interview for a lot of people in the media was Donald Trump reintroducing himself to them and saying, look, I don't know if you remember how this is going to go, but this is how this is going to go. I don't know if you remember me, but I'm no Joe Biden. I'm no Kamala Harris. We're going to have a conversation, but you're not going to try to propagandize or trap me. And if you do, I'll call you out on it. And Kristen Welker was on the receiving end of some of that President Trumpism during this interview.
Just remember, unselect committee, a year and a half of sworn testimony. And after getting all of the testimony, they deleted it. Wait. and they destroyed almost everything. There's nothing left. It's unprecedented.
And they deny doing that.
If you do that in a civil case, you go to jail.
You know they deny doing that. And officials say that the order never came in for the National Guard.
Statement.
On January 6th, let me ask you this about January 6th. I think
Benny
you're going to want to
Thompson
answer
wrote
this.
in a statement that he has destroyed all evidence.
Let me ask you this about January 6th.
I wish you could be you have such potential. If you could be just non-biased, you hurt yourself so badly.
It's one of those moments where reporters, I think, reporters and interviewers, when they first encounter President Donald Trump in these situations and scenarios, it's one of those things where I don't think they really realize what's happening at the moment. And I don't think they understand that the way they react is going to determine pretty much the rest of their careers. Kristen Welker seemed to handle it okay. But President Trump, very blunt and honest with her, saying, look, you are so biased. And if you're hurting yourself. If you weren't so biased, you would do so much better, which I don't know if I disagree with that, but that's neither here nor there. He then also went on a diatribe about the press at the very end of the interview. Again, kind of a shot across the bow, if you will, a warning to the rest of the media that this is not Joe Biden. This is not Kamala Harris. This is President Donald Trump. This is the man who coined the term fake news, who said it to Jim Acosta to his face multiple times in the press briefing room. This is the guy who's not going to kowtow and give you your big story. This is the guy who's going to make you work and call you out when you propagandize, when you lie, when you misinform, when you tell falsehoods, when you just are too lazy to find out the truth, or when you use your position in the media and the press to help or aid or benefit one of your Democrat counterparts, or just be a mouthpiece for the Democrat message. He's now in charge. He has the bully pulpit, and he's going to do whatever he needs to do to make sure that he uses it.
The press has to straighten itself out, because honestly, it's lost all credibility. When that can happen, based on the press, I should have gotten no votes, none. And yet I got the highest number ever. And the reason is because I'm able to go on a show, even like yours, even though you're very hostile, I'm able to go on a show like yours. No, you are.
Well, hopefully you thought it was a fair interview. We covered a lot of policy ground.
It's fair only in that you allowed me to say what I say. But, the answers, the questions are, pretty nasty. But look, because I've seen you interview other people like Biden. And
I've never interviewed President Biden. Actually.
When I say you, I'm talking metaphorically. I've seen George Stephanopoulos interview Biden, and he's a tough interviewer. It's the softest interview. I've seen CNN interview him. They give these soft, what's your favorite ice cream? It's a whole different deal. I don't understand why. You would think the press would like to see strong borders, great education, a powerful military, so we have a country left, and all these different things. And somehow they don't want to see that. Yeah,
because it's not in the talking points and the messaging points that they get from the White House. Speaking of the press and speaking of what's going to happen in President Trump's administration, it's going to be very entertaining. You're going to see more of these one-on-one interviews, I'm sure. And it's not going to be the kind of one-on-one interviews we've seen with Joe Biden or with anyone else that's currently in the administration. This is not going to be your, I'm a politician, you're the press, I'm trying to get as much face time with you as I possibly can. It's going to be remarkably different. And this is the taste. This is the appetizer. This is the reminder that Donald Trump is an outlier. Donald Trump is not your father's president of the United States, and the media should be put on notice. It's going to be a tough 4 years for them. And even in the press room, this has been a big question that has popped up. Caroline Leavitt was on Fox News, and she was asked about seating in the press room and what press outlets would be where, and would there be alternative press outlets allowed in the press briefing room. And here's what she said.
There has never been a more transparent president than Donald Trump. We saw that in his first term. He consistently called the press into the Oval Office when he was signing bills. He took questions from them directly. That's something the press, I know, is yearning for. They have not had that over the past 4 years. So their transparency and their access to the leader of the free world will be increased, and also to the press secretary as well. We will be holding briefings in that room. I think as far as the landscape of the briefing room, it needs to reflect the media habits of the American people in 2024, not not in the 1980s. And President Trump won this election by utilizing non-traditional, non-legacy media voices outside the Beltway. That's clearly who the American people are listening to. That's how they're digesting their news. And I think it would be irresponsible of us not to include some of those voices in the briefing room. It is my job to communicate the president's message to the American people as effectively as possible. And we're looking into ways
so some
to
of
do
those
that.
Independent alternative voices in journalism. He used that alternative media to get elected. It would only be fair for him to keep some of the alternative media around. And in the press room, I wonder where my seat's going to be. I'm just kidding. I didn't apply for press credentials, but maybe I'll swing by one day and see if I can sit in and bring you a live report direct from the White House, because that is our goal here every single day on the 47 Daily, direct from the president's transition team, his first 100 days, his next 4 years in office, from the White House to my mouth to your ears for the next 4 years. That's what we're hoping to accomplish here on the 47 Daily. Speaking of Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, there was another announcement from President Donald Trump regarding his a cabinet, or rather his administration, and that is Alina Habba. President Trump wrote on Truth Social, "I am pleased to announce that Alina Habba will join my White House team as counselor to the president. Alina has been a tireless advocate for justice, a fierce defender of the rule of law, and an invaluable advisor to my campaign and transition team. She has been unwavering in her loyalty and unmatched in her resolve, standing with me through numerous trials, in quotes, battles, and countless days in court. Few understand the weaponization of the injustice system better than Alina, who has fought relentlessly against the full force of lawfare with courage and an unshakable commitment to justice. As a first-generation American of Middle Eastern heritage, she has become a role model for women in law and politics, most recently being named Chaldean Woman of the Year. Congratulations to Alina, her husband, Greg, and her three beautiful children, Chloe, Luke, and Parker." I had the opportunity to catch up with Alina Habba earlier this year, right before the election, as a matter of fact, the week before. And I asked her, what's going to happen to you after the election? Are you going to get a reprieve? When Donald Trump goes back to the White House, do you get like a reprieve from the lawsuits for a while? Do you get like a 4-year vacation?
You know, I don't think they'll ever stop, because if it's not Donald Trump, it's his family. If it's not his family, it's his company. If it's not them, it's the lawyers, it's the whoever. You know, it's desperation at its finest. And we'll see what happens, obviously, but I'm excited for November 5th, and I'm ready to see him back at the White House.
We know now the answer is no. There is no reprieve for Alina Habba. There is no vacation. There's no time off. She'll be headed back to the White House, where she'll be serving as counselor to the president. A very important job, a very important role, and one that she is well suited for and well qualified for. Something else that popped up just overnight was an announcement from President Trump's daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, who, fun fact, I'll be chatting with later today, announcing that she's retiring, or resigning rather, from the RNC. She wrote, "Serving as the GOP co-chair throughout the course of the most consequential election in American history has truly been the honor of my life. At the RNC, we had 3 distinct goals. Number 1, surpass all fundraising records. Number 2, build the largest army of lawyers and poll watchers to ensure election integrity. And number 3, turn out millions of Americans and low propensity voters during early voting. We accomplished all 3. The job I came to do is now complete, and I intend to formally step down from the RNC at our next meeting. Thank you to our incredible team at the RNC, our amazing chairman, Whatley, and of course, thank you to President Donald Trump. We are so proud of you, and I'm grateful you trusted me in this position." As I said earlier today, I will be chatting with Lara Trump later on, and we will ask her about what her future plans are. There's some speculation that she's going to be appointed senator from the state of Florida to replace Marco Rubio. We'll see if that's the case, or if she's got something else up her sleeve. But it is exciting for her, and she did do a fantastic job. Chairman Whatley, you may remember, was asked by President Trump last week to stay on, which I believe he'll be doing. It'll be exciting to see what the next chapter is for Lara Trump as well, and if there's going to be more Trumps in elected positions in the United States government. If you want to hear that interview, the best thing to do is make sure you're checking out our late day podcast. It's actually noon, but we have a commentary podcast, full commentary, more news about all kinds of different things, not just President Trump and his transition in his White House, but other aspects of news and government and pop culture. And we do interviews from time to time as well. It's called Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, and you can find it on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Download, listen, and enjoy.